You've poured your heart and soul into writing your book, and you know that to get published, you're going to need to find a literary agent. But when are you supposed to find this person? After you write a first draft? After a second draft? I'm gonna talk about that today. I'm going to share with you the few things you must do before you are ready to query a literary agent. Let's go. Many years ago, when I first had a book that I wanted to get published, I knew that I needed a literary agent, but I had no clue how that whole agent thing worked. So I got my hands on that year's Guide to Literary Agents. It's a book that I think still comes out every year. It's a little bit obsolete now. Armed with this book, I sent out over 100 identical letters to various agents. And when I say identical, I mean, I didn't personalize them other than change the dear field. Like, I didn't even personalize the opening sentence. Yeah, cringeworthy. Don't do this. So you can probably guess what happened after that. Crickets. Needless to say, maybe that's not the way to go about securing a literary agent. And thankfully, I eventually learned from my mistakes. I realized that mass communication is not the approach. I needed to be more tailored and intentional, and eventually it did work. I managed to sign with my literary agent, who is still my agent to this day, and she sold my 3 novels. So what should you do before you start reaching out to agents? If not, look at the Guide to Literary Agents. And by the way, if you want to know how to reach out to agents, I do have other videos on that. And the reason I called that guide obsolete is because now that information is pretty widely available on the internet for free. All right, the first thing you want to make sure you do before you reach out to agents is revise your book. I like to use the analogy of building a house when I talk about revision, because even without being a builder, you know that you wouldn't start building a house by trying to paint the walls that don't exist yet, or put up the window trimmings for the windows that don't exist yet. That would be a disaster. You are still laying the foundation. The same logic applies to drafting. When we sit down to put our story on paper, we cannot simultaneously worry about how it's being presented. Getting a first draft down is completely separate from making it presentable, so to speak, which is revision. These are 2 completely different tasks, as different from laying a foundation and painting a wall. Revision is a must for everyone. Your first draft is merely the foundation of the house. It's not ready yet for someone to move in, or in our case, for it to be sent to an agent. So be patient. The agents will be there when you're ready. You need to revise first. If you don't, you're shooting yourself in the leg. The second thing you must do before you try to get an agent is get feedback on your work. Okay, here's the sequence I teach to writers in my program. I have based this off of years of trying it different ways and experiencing the pitfalls of alternate approaches. First, you have to get down your messy first draft. Then revise yourself without getting feedback on it yet from others. You're gonna go in and find things that you want to change. So you don't need feedback yet. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit you're gonna spot on your own that you wanna fix. Once you've done that pass, you're ready for feedback. Feedback earlier than this can be derailing. I think it's dangerous because you risk replacing your own opinion with other people's opinions. And Virginia, if you've done that before, I did it for many years. But at some point, which in my opinion is after one revision, feedback becomes essential. We can't see our work objectively as much as we may try. And you don't need to get feedback from loads of people, 2 or 3 will do, but get feedback from a couple of people you trust before you start sending your manuscript out to literary agents. Okay, the third thing you need to do is check your word count. So there's some flexibility here, but you don't want your word count to be way off. The minimum word count for most adult and young adult books is going to be about 70,000 words. The minimum word count for middle grade is much lower, maybe 40,000 words. Now, if you're writing in particular genres, these numbers shift a bit, and you can encounter maximums as well, like a lighthearted romance novel should not come in at 200,000 words. That is going to be too long. You want to check your genre's word count. And again, the internet is a great source of free information for this. And make sure you're in the right ballpark, or you're going to have trouble getting an agent to even look at your work. Word count matters. It matters a lot to selling your book, no matter how good your story is. And so an agent is going to have an eye to that first thing. Now, I have 2 more must-dos for you, but real fast before I share them. If you're writing a book, I want to invite you to apply to my program, the Book Incubator. It's a 12-month MFA alternative that I started and that I now run with novelist Rufi Thorpe. You can learn more about it and apply at the link below this video. The application is only 2 questions. It takes like 3 minutes. If you're writing a novel, you'll definitely want to check it out. Now back to the video. The 4th must-do is check your grammar. This is important. I find that people in my program to help writers write publishable books often know when grammar is a weakness, but sometimes they just kind of hope that an agent won't notice. They'll ask like, will they still give me a shot? You know, will someone help me clean it up later? And I have to tell them, unfortunately, that's not how it works. Grammar will make or break you. I'm not saying that the occasional typo is going to break you, but if this is something you struggle with, if every other sentence has a grammatical issue, it's not gonna matter how great your story is, you aren't going to get a literary agent with that version of your manuscript. Now, I'm not saying it's not a great story. I'm just saying you have more work to do. These days, there are really affordable software options that can do it for you, like Pro Writing Aid and Grammarly. Just note, by the way, that these programs will also often flag stylistic choices you've made, and you can take or leave those. Like, I wouldn't do a sort of global acceptance of everything they recommend, but they're really good at flagging the actual grammatical errors, which are going to be the main problem if you aren't a pretty clean grammatical writer already. All right, the 5th and final must-do before you start querying agents, make sure that you like your book. This is the most important. When you sit down and read your manuscript like a reader would, not like the writer of it, do you like it? You know, do you think it's fun and entertaining? Are you bored? This is what matters more than anything else. Now, I realize at some point we are so close to our work that we can't see straight. It can be hard to know if it's fun when you've essentially memorized it. But this is why it's really important to set it aside for some time and let some time pass, come back to it, because then you can get some distance and see if, once you've had some space, time and space away from your draft, if you actually like it when you return. Until you like it, I tend to think it's not ready to send out to literary agents. But once you do, it's a good sign that it might be. Speaking of writing, are you writing a book or do you want to write a book? Because if so, I would love to hear from you. When I'm not writing, my mission is to help writers write their dream books. I love it. And if you're curious to know more, I have a video walking you through my 4 notebooks method for writing a novel. You can get that video along with my free template for using the 4 notebooks method to write your novel by applying to my program, the Book Incubator, at the link below. It's a 12-month MFA alternative, and the application is just 2 questions. I just ask you to tell me a little bit about you and your book or your book idea. It'll take you less than 5 minutes. So go to the link below or go to thebookincubator.com. I really hope to hear from you.